All right, let's jump right in. Right now, there are five massive, and I mean massive, events going on that seem totally disconnected. But what if I told you they're all part of the same story? From Europe to the Americas, these aren't just your daily headlines. They are literally redrawing the global energy map as we speak. And that's really the heart of it, right? We're not just talking about news cycles here. These are calculated, strategic power moves that are completely reshaping the energy map. We're going to look past all the daily noise and really see the strategy underneath, who's making these moves, and why it's going to decide who controls our energy for the next decade. Okay, so first up, governments. They're getting right in the game. They're not just referees on the sidelines anymore, setting the rules. No, they are active players, picking their national champions and using all their authority to lock in a strategic advantage. And one of their most powerful tools is this thing called golden power. Now, what is that? Well, you can think of it like a government's ultimate trump card. It lets them step into a big corporate deal and just say, whoa, hold on a second. This asset, this company, it's vital to our national interest, so we're intervening. And that is exactly what Italy just did. And the results? It's just staggering. By using its golden power to approve this massive merger, Italy basically created a new offshore energy supergiant. I mean, just look at that order backlog. We're talking over 50 billion euros. That's more than 3 times its biggest competitor. But here's the catch, the one condition. The headquarters, all the high-tech R&D, it has to stay in Milan. See, this isn't just business as usual. This is national industrial policy playing out on a global stage. Now, this kind of thing isn't just happening over in Europe. If we look across the Atlantic, the United States is also using its state power, but in a totally different way. They're using it to tighten the screws on Venezuela, carefully, methodically, controlling the flow of its oil. And look, this is way more clever than just cutting production in half, right? Yeah, exports are down from about 240,000 barrels a day to 120,000. But the real power play here is in how the payments are made. By forcing Venezuela to accept its tax payments in oil instead of cold hard cash, Washington is effectively starving the governments of the currency it desperately needs. All while, and this is key, allowing a major U.S. company, Chevron, to keep its foot in the door. It's a geopolitical masterclass in how to squeeze an adversary without completely shutting them out. All right, so that's how governments are playing the game. But what about the big corporations themselves? Well, big oil is making its own huge strategic pivots. And let me tell you, it's probably not in the direction you're expecting. So just a few years back, the ambition was absolutely huge. You take a company like BP. They set this major public target, produce 100,000 barrels of biofuels every single day by 2030. This was supposed to be a cornerstone, the foundation of their big green energy transition. So what's the reality today? Well, they're at about 10,000 barrels a day, a tenth of the goal. That massive shortfall, it tells you everything you need to know about what happens when lofty green ambitions crash into hard economic realities. This isn't just a small miss. The whole dream of a biofuel revolution is slamming into a very simple, very firm corporate rule. If a project can't deliver at least a 15% return on investment, it's getting put on the shelf. And it's not just BP. Shell has also hit the brakes on major biofuel plants because right now, the numbers just don't add up. So you have to ask, right? If all that capital isn't flowing into these big green projects, where is it going? Well, it's pivoting. But it's not just going back to any old fossil fuel. It's flowing very specifically into projects that have strong geopolitical backing and, you guessed it, clear profitability. Case in point, natural gas in the Eastern Mediterranean. Let's look at Chevron's new pipeline play. This is so much more than just a piece of infrastructure. It's about influence. Step 1, you build this pipeline from Israel's enormous Leviathan gas field. Step 2, you send all that gas to Egypt's export terminals. And what's the result? You've just solidified a US-backed energy corridor. You've strengthened alliances in a tricky region, and you've given Europe another crucial place to get its gas. It's a corporate move that fits like a glove into a much larger geopolitical strategy. Okay, so we've got state power, we've got corporate strategy, but there's a third element we absolutely have to talk about, the unpredictable piece, the political wild card, that sudden policy shift that can just come out of nowhere and flip the entire board over. And we might be seeing a perfect example of that right now. Former President Trump has recently made a surprisingly hawkish turn on Russia and Ukraine. He's now calling for a total ban on all Russian oil imports into the West. Now, setting aside the politics of it all, think about the impact. A policy shock of that magnitude would move markets faster and more violently than any drilling rig or pipeline ever could. So, let's take a step back. We've talked about an Italian state-backed merger, U.S. sanctions on Venezuela, big oil's retreat from biofuels, a new gas pipeline in the Med, and a potential political U-turn. They all feel pretty separate, don't they? But what's the common thread? What connects all 5 of these moves? This is where it all comes together. When you stop looking at them as individual stories and you see them as puzzle pieces, they form a single, very clear picture of the new energy world we're living in. What we're seeing is the dawn of a new era of what you could call geopolitical industrial policy. It's not just about business anymore, and it's not just about politics. What's happening is that state power and corporate strategy are fusing together. They're becoming one and the same, with the shared goal of controlling global energy flows, securing supply chains, and getting a leg up on their rivals. And if you want to see the real-world impact of this, look no further than Europe's breakup with Russian oil. It's absolutely stunning. Back in 2021, Russia supplied almost 30% of Europe's oil imports. By next year, that's projected to be just 2%. That is what happens when geopolitical policy becomes the main driver of energy markets. So, what does this all mean for the future? What does this new rulebook look like? If state power and corporate strategy are now 2 sides of the same coin, what are the actual consequences for all of us? Well, the impacts are going to be massive. For one, when governments help create these corporate giants, like the one in Italy, you have fewer, larger suppliers. That means less competition, and it could mean higher prices for everyone. These new gas routes, like the one Chevron's building, they completely shift Europe's leverage away from its traditional suppliers. And what if that political wildcard really does take all Russian oil off the Western market? You'd see a global scramble for every available barrel. The entire map of who wins and who loses in the world of energy is being redrawn right in front of our eyes. Which really just leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? As we head towards 2030 and this new era where nations and corporations are basically partners in a high-stakes global power game, who's actually going to set the price of energy? Will it be the producers, the consumers, or the governments pulling all the strings from behind the curtain? The answer to that is going to define the next decade.